Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We're here to talk about the new Hydro Traveler. We're going to take a look at this character, his whole kit, essentially what he does, talk about how it works, how it's going to work in the game, all the builds, the weapons, the artifacts, all that mumbo jumbo, and then talk about the value of him. Is he a good traveler? Is he a bad traveler? And all that sort of stuff. So let's get into it. I should preface this by saying that this is all subject to change because this is being recorded well before the release of Fontaine. So bear in mind that the percentages and values may differ from the final product, but generally speaking, the gameplay should be roughly the same. So there's no need to look at his essential materials because he is obviously the Traveler, so we're going to get right into the actual kit of him. So his normal attack is mostly irrelevant. This is just a normal attack pattern. There's no special features to it, so we're just going to bypass this one. But going down to his skill, Aqua Crest Saber, it is a two-parter. It has a press and a hold, and for the press, you're going to send out a Torrent Surge forward that deals Hydro damage to opponents it comes in contact with, which is pretty cool. It's just a burst of Hydro damage dealing. At level 10, you can obviously get it to level 13 quite easily, but at level 13, 402% of your attacker's damage, which is pretty good actually. 402% for a skill is not too shabby. It's not the highest thing we've ever seen in the world, but very good for a skill. Moving on to his hold though, which is a bit more interesting. You enter an aiming mode and constantly fire off dewdrops in the direction in which you are aiming. You essentially turret up, by the way. You become a stationary turret. Dealing Hydro damage to opponents they hit. When the skill ends, it will send out a Torrent Surge forward, dealing Hydro damage to opponents it comes in contact with, which is very handy. You do a bunch of shots. I think it's about 10 Hydro pellets that you shoot out whilst you're aiming, and then you do a Torrent Surge, which is also very good. And then the last part here, Suffusion. When the Traveler's HP is higher, but above 50%, they will continuously lose HP and cause the dewdrop damage to increase based on their HP. So he is a HP scaling character with his skill, which is very great. Now, taking a look at the percentages really quickly, again at level 13, your dewdrop damage by itself is 69.7%, so not that great in my brain, if I remember correctly, of the video that I've seen or the footage that I've seen. You shoot out about 10 Hydro pellets per elemental skill, and that's about 10 times 69, sorry, which will get you to 690%. So it's not the highest thing, seeing as you have to aim, and not a lot of them are going to be causing reactions because of the fire rate. But, you know, for just general raw Hydro damage, it's pretty good. Taking a look at the HP cost of Suffusion, though, it's 4% of your HP per pellet, which is a lot of HP. If my numbers are correct, with 10 shots being per skill, that's 40% of your max HP going every single time you're above 50, so it's a lot of HP. My calculations may be wrong. Again, I'm not sure. I didn't count how many shots he shot because waste of time. But you're going to be losing a lot of HP with this guy. He does have a healing mechanism, though, in his passives. But then the damage boost based on max HP is oddly low. 1.36% at the level 13 margin here. 1.36% damage increase of your max HP to a shot that's not going to be doing an abundantly large amount of damage. It feels very odd. I feel like this could be like maybe 4% as well, and it wouldn't be a problem. Maybe just a slightly higher percent. But then the max duration for the hold is 6 seconds, cooldown is 10 seconds, which is fine and dandy. Overall, his skill is interesting. The only two problems that I really could find is that the HP scaling of it, obviously early days, is not that high, so you're not going to be able to do much with this. And then the other one is that his skill, when you're doing the hold version, is not going to be usable in many situations because you turret up, you essentially become a stationary target, you have to sit down and start aiming. The enemies aren't going to just wait for you to stop aiming and then continue the fight. They will attack you, specifically if you're going into something like the Abysses where the enemies are hyperactive. And the other one is that, reactions just aren't going to be a thing with this ability, especially the hold part. If you do the press reaction, you could probably get a lot of value, but the hold will not really net you that many reactions, I think, because the internal cooldown of reaction time is pretty brutal in Genshin, so you're not going to be able to get much value in that regard. So that's the only problem I find with the skill. But overall, it's a cool take. It's a nice aiming mode that we get, and kind of like a machine gun character. But it probably needs a few more tweaks for it to be actually, viable. And then swiftly moving on to the much simpler ability, Q, or his ultimate, Rising Waters. unleash a slow-moving floating bubble that deals continuous hydro damage to nearby opponents, which is simply just one sentence of text to describe the ability. Essentially, he chucks up a bubble into the sky and it shoots bubbles at the enemies for hydro application, is essentially the way that I'm interpreting this. I haven't actually seen gameplay footage of this one. I probably should have looked it up. But you just chuck a bubble and it pew pew pew. It's pretty interesting. Its hydro application usage is probably the main reason you're going to be using this. Off-field especially, because it's good off-field. But looking at the values, level 13, 216% of each hydro application. So it's not a small amount of percentage, but it's not ridiculously high for application purposes. It's pretty good. Duration 4 seconds, not that high, but I will give a small tidbit here is that it does have a duration increase in the Constellations, I believe. Cooldown 20 seconds, energy cost 80. The energy cost being 80 is quite high for it being an application ability. So bear in mind that you might need a lot of energy recharge on him, and I'll suggest a few weapons. But oddly high energy cost. But yeah, that's the skill. It's or the ability rather for the ultimate is just that it's a hydro application ability. Now we go on to the passives where I mentioned that he does have a healing modality, which is his first passive, Spotless Waters. After the Dewdrop, fired by the hold mode of his elemental skill, hits an opponent, a source water droplet will be generated near the Traveler. If the Traveler picks it up, they will restore 7% of their max HP. One droplet can be created this way every second, and each elemental skill usage can only create 4 water droplets at most, to a total of healing 28% of your max HP per elemental skill. So your elemental skill, if you're above 50%, drains your HP by a large percentage, and then because of the skill and the passive, you can then heal that up, but it's not a 1-for-1. I think they should have tried to make it a 1-for-1 in terms of the healing to HP loss. So if you lose 40% of your HP, you should be able to heal all 40% back. So it doesn't make it that the actual usage of your elemental skill is a detrimental part of your kit. It's a risky thing if you're using it and then you get one shot by, let's say, a lava churl or an elemental beast. But if you do get it off and then you collect all the things, I feel like you should get a full refund of the HP that you lost. I think that's a nice fun way to like make it not terrible to use, because you do lose about 12% HP no matter what, just for the skill usage. But regardless, you do have a way to heal just with this character. And then going on to this passive 2, Clear Waters, if HP has been consumed via Suffusion while using the hold mode of his skill, the Torrent Surge at the end of the skill will deal bonus damage equal to 45% of the total HP the Traveler has consumed in this skill via Suffusion. Maximum damage that can be gained this way is 5,000. Now that's a very odd way to structure a skill, but to explain it simply is that the HP drain portion of the elemental skill hold, which drains 4% per shot, this passive works with that HP that you lose, and it's 45% of that HP that you lost that will be then added as damage. So if you have, let's just do some simple maths, 10,000 HP, and presumably the skill uses 40%. So if you have 10,000, you use 40%, which is 4,000 HP as consumed by Suffusion. That 4,000 will then be taken away, and then 45% of that 4,000 will be added as damage to the last hit, which is the Torrent Surge. It's a very roundabout way of adding damage to an ability, so I'm not really sure what Miho is thinking with this one, but it's an interesting one. You're not going to be getting super high value, but it's not too hard to get that 5,000 margin. It's a fine passive, but it's a very, very wordy one that you have to kind of understand. So those are the 2 passives. And standalone his kit, right? I always love to do this, analyze the kit by itself, no additionals. Standalone his kit is kind of weak. Let's be real. Let's be absolutely real here. Apart from his ultimate, which is Hydro Application, I don't think his skill is that great. The turret nature of it doesn't really fit Genshin unless it's a super powerful turret nature, or there is some sort of modality to move, like some sort of mid-skill dash that you can then still continue. So it's a bit of an odd one, and a bit of an odd character. He is an interesting one though, and I do like the take of a different type of character. Obviously, the Traveler always innovates in terms of how to play, because he adds a different mechanic usually I say. So it's an interesting character, but I don't think their value is too high. If I was to compare the Traveler to the other elements of the Traveler, it's in the bottom few, like the bottom 2 maybe, the bottom 3. Obviously, you have Dendro and like Anemo very high in the list. But then, you know, Hydro's falling down a fair bit, maybe down to the second last useful one. I'm talking about maybe usefulness. Now, I should clarify that you probably also can make him work and make the build work and you can make everything work in Genshin, but just from a, like, a bare minimum perspective, not that great of a performance. Now, quickly going on to his Eidolons or Constellations. I'm going to get those two things mixed up all the time, but going on to his Constellations, we've got some interesting ones and we've got some useful ones, but, still, we're going to assess the value as we go. So looking at Constellation 1, Swelling Lake. Picking up a source water droplet will restore 2 energy to the traveler. This requires the talent Spotless Water. So essentially, those things that heal you from the passive, the 7% healing per droplet, will also give you 2 energy, essentially adding an extra 8 energy onto your elemental skills recharge pool, which it's fine. It's a flat amount of energy recharge, and it's always good to have. Is it super amazing, great, fantabulous constellation? No, but it's a really good Constellation 1. Constellation 2, Trickling Purity. The movement speed of Rising Water's bubble will be decreased by 30%, and its duration increased by 3 seconds. So this is the constellation that I mentioned earlier that increased the duration of your ultimate, making it a bit better of an applicator. But the Rising Water's bubble will be decreased in movement speed by 30%. Now, you may think that that's a negative or some sort of bad thing, but simply put, just a kind of movement speed decrease. It doesn't actually reduce the value. You'll have the same amount of damage and the same amount of hits and the same amount of value from the ultimate. It's just going to happen at a slower rate per se. And then Constellation 4, Pouring Descent. When using his elemental skill, an Aqua Crest Aegis that can absorb 10% of the traveler's HP and damage will be created, and it will absorb Hydro to 250% efficacy. It will persist until the traveler finishes using the elemental skill. Once every 2 seconds after a drop hits an opponent, if the traveler is being protected by an Aqua Crest Aegis, the damage absorption of the Aegis will be restored to 10% of the traveler's max HP. If the traveler is not presently being protected by an Aegis, one will be redeployed. Simply put, during your elemental skill, you get a shield, just a passive shield for 10% of the traveler's max HP. Now that's really, really good and really useful. Probably his most useful constellation out of all of them, because they do make his skill a bit better to use. You can now actually think about going for raw DPS with it if you want to just turret up and just go for the big damage, if you want to do that, obviously. To get actually some value out of the shield, you will need to go pretty high if you want to end up using this type of build in high floors for the Spiral Abyss. It's going to take a lot of HP. You're probably going to need to try to get up to 60k to actually have a valued shield of at least, like, some substance, as well as to have the damage. But, that's HP characters. You need a lot of HP. Constellation 6, Tides of Justice. When the traveler picks up a water source droplet from the passive, they will restore HP to the nearest party member with the lowest HP percentage remaining based on 6% of their max HP. Now, this is an interesting one because it kind of turns the traveler into a healer. Kind of, because that's very, very high value healing. Very, very high value healing. 6% of their max HP. Now, that there, right there, kind of confusing me, because is it the traveler's HP or is it the actual character's HP? My assumption is the character's HP. But it's pretty good healing. You're always going to get 4 of these. It's going to take you a very short amount of time to get all 4 droplets on the field. You pick them up, it heals the traveler for 28, and presumably the next lowest character, who happens to be wherever they are, they don't have to be on field. The traveler can pick these up. But the heals the next character for 6% per droplet to a total of 24% of either the traveler's HP or the character's HP. So pretty good. Not overly useful, but it's cool to have the traveler be a potential healer. Right, that's the way that I'm going to put that, is that it's cool to have the traveler be a potential healer. Now, as per usual, we have to give value on the constellations, but because it's the traveler, I'm not going to obviously recommend a threshold or where to get to, because you get to get all these through the story. But value-wise, they're all kind of okay. Having the energy recharge on Constellation 1 is fine. Having the duration increase on Constellation 2 is fine. Having the shield on Constellation 4 is a bit better than fine. It's pretty useful if you're not running already a shield character like Diona, Zhongli, or Layla or something like that. So it's fine, but a bit better than fine. And then Constellation 6, it's fine. It's all fine, is the simple way that I'm going to put it. It's all fine, just not like nothing extremely amazing. That's really just the traveler right now, the Hydra traveler summed up. Now, onto the weapons builds. We're going to talk about that now. This is the section for the building of the character and just theorizing what you're going to be using on the character. So, let's get the obvious stuff out of the way. If you want to build him for a DPS, your best options are obviously the whole array of DPS 5 stars. You've got the Mist Splitter Reforged, the Harangue Bakufutsu, you got the Light Foliar of Incision, you got the Primordial Jet Cutter, you got the Summit Shaper. Those are going to be your best DPS specific. You want to deal Unga Bunga damage. That's what you're going to be choosing for damage. For the 4-star, obviously it's going to be the Black Sword. There is the new weapon, the Wolf Fang, which is the brand new, if I have it here open as a link. It's the new 4-star from the Battle Pass, the 4-star sword from the Battle Pass. You can use this one. It's obviously fine. It's obviously fine, you know, going through the weapons very quickly. And then any attack percentage weapon or any crit rate, crit damage weapon from the 4-star category is going to be your best in slot for DPS. Obviously, just get that spiel out of the way because that's the obvious stuff. That's easy. Now, if you want to build the characters to scale and work a bit more with his stats and kind of stat scaling and all this kind of different malarkey, well, your best weapon is probably going to be the Key of Kaj Nisud. It's the only HP sword in the game. This bad boy right here, only HP sword in the game, and so that's probably going to be your best for him if you want to get a high value shield whilst you're in your skill, if you want to get some high value damage scaling from that 1.36% that you're getting from his elemental skill hold. So that's going to be the best. Obviously, it's going to like dial down your ultimate damage, but if you're only using the ultimate for Hydra application, then that's fine. So this one's probably going to be your highest value one. But then going on to the 4-stars, I'm not sure why that changed to bow. Going on to the 4-stars, this is where it gets a bit tougher, because obviously I should say that these other 3 right here, I probably wouldn't recommend. The Aquila Favonia, Scoured Blade, and Freedom Sworn, probably wouldn't recommend them. Scoured Blade is alright, but come on, there's better. Going on to the 4-stars, it's just going to be like energy recharge recommendations here, mainly. I'm not going to try to recommend like an actual like DPS weapon here. Go for the Favonia Sword. Don't do Sacrificial Sword. I don't think it's going to work quite how we expect it. Specifically because of the hold, I don't think you're going to be able to cool down, refresh the hold ability of the Traveler, and even then, it wouldn't be that high value to refresh the hold ability. So if you're very strict on using his press skill, then Sacrificial Sword is going to be pretty good. But I would just recommend Favonia Sword or the Royal Long Sword, something along those lines. That's energy recharge that would be useful in the long run. I believe the Royal Longsword is energy recharge. No, it's not actually. Scratch that. I totally didn't know that this wasn't energy recharge. Don't use the Royal Sword. Just don't do it. Just use the the Favonius Sword. Or something along those lines. There's a new sword here for fishing, I believe, as well. You probably could try to use this. Increase elemental skill crit rate by 8. Additionally, increase energy recharge by 16. That's also fine. The crossing of Fleuve Cendre, if that's how you say it in French. Those are fine. But yeah, go for some energy recharge through your weapon because he has an 80 cost ultimate, and you're probably also mainly going to be using him for his ultimate because he's a Hydra applicator. And now, the moment of artifacts. This is probably the most subjective section of this video, as there's a lot of answers, but there is one artifact that is releasing with Fontaine that is pretty much made for this version of the Traveler, and it is the infamous Mara Chasseur Hunter. This one is kind of like pseudo-made for the playstyle of the Traveler. It's also kind of made for a few other characters, but essentially 2-piece normal attack damage. I am kind of covering here, my apologies. Where can I place myself? Right there. 2-set normal attack damage and charge attack damage plus 15, and then when your HP increases or decreases, so up or down, this is the 4-set by the way, it increases or decreases, crit rate will be increased by 11 for 5 seconds, max stacks 3. The reason it's kind of built for him is that he drains his HP through his elemental skill hold, and so you'll be able to get a lot of value. Now, the obviously contradictory part is that it's normal and charge attack damage, so it's not exactly built for the Trailblazer, the Traveler, whatever the hell he's called, but it will get the job done, and it's also a crit rate boost, so you're going to be getting guaranteed crits. That means you can funnel into crit damage, and you'll get the job done. So this one's pretty good for him. It's obviously not the best one. This is just kind of because it's a new one that I'm going to recommend it, just new things and recommend new stuff. We're going to actually try to be civilized about this and try to be logical. There's other ones that are good for him. Tenacity of the Millilith is a classic. If you don't have a Tenacity Applicator, which is just to get that Tenacity of the Millilith buff, this is a great one. This is a great one to get. The 2% is HP, and then the 4-set, although you're not going to consistently have the buff, you'll be able to at least have it through some means, and you can obviously have that value of HP. Now, you could mix and match this one with the other HP set, which is Varukash's Glow, just to get a high-scaling HP character for, let me actually just move myself here. to get a high scaling HP character for like the whatever the Traveler does. So that might be a better option. And then after that, if you want to go for a pure DPS build, Nymph's Dream is currently what I would surmise as the best for pure DPS Hydro characters. Maybe not all Hydro characters, but at least the Traveler. At least the Traveler Hydro version. Hydro bonus on 2 set and then 4 set. After you do a normal charge, normal attack, elemental skill, and elemental burst, you'll get 1, 2, 3 stacks of Mirrored Nymph. And that will give you an attack boost as well as a Hydro damage boost. Just thought I'd summarize that because it's a lot of text. And it's a very high value one. You get about, 35 or 40 Hydro damage bonus or something along those lines. No, you get 30, sorry. And then you get a 25 attack bonus, which is, I think it's an artifact set that gives the most of something. So it's really good. And those are kind of the only recommendations that I'm going to make with this. Nothing else really kind of compares. You obviously could try elemental mastery things to do reaction builds. That's definitely a viable strategy. But the ones that I'm given here are kind of obvious kind of examples, just to have the character scaling more properly in the future. Obviously, with some future artifacts, they might release one that's a lot better. But for now, these are my recommendations. And now the final section, just kind of rounding thoughts. The Traveler is a Hydro applicator. That's his role. That's pretty much it. You can make him do other things. Again, I don't want to, discourage people from trying to do build variety, but his role is a Hydro applicator. He's going to apply Hydro, much like other characters like Yelan, Kamisato Ayato, as well as Jing Cho. That's kind of his role, is that. You can make him do other things. And that's fine. He's not going to be the best in his role. Let's be absolutely honest. He's not going to be the best in his role. And the reason I'm going to rate the Hydro Traveler so low is because unlike the Dendro Traveler, which was the only Dendro applicator for a very long time, until about after Nahida, essentially to 2 patches later. The Hydro Travelers joining a kind of a collection of characters as Hydro applicators that's already existing and that already has established their roles. Try like a Hydro character and the Traveler trying to compete with characters like Yelan and Kamisato Ayato, Jing Cho. It's just not going to work out. They have to do something extremely special to be much better than these good examples. So he's not going to be the best in his job, but if you don't have these characters, bear in mind 2 of them are 5 stars, if you don't have Yelan or Ayato, then obviously the Traveler is going to be a great Hydro applicator for you. If you want to do something like Bloom teams, or you want to do Pyro Melt, something along those lines, if that's what you're looking to do, then he's going to be an absolutely fine choice. But if you do have the other characters, Ayato, Yelan, Jing Cho, they're going to definitely provide a bit better utility along the way. And then obviously there's a lot of other comps that you could try to run with him. Obviously infinite amount of comps that you could try because it's Hydro. You could also try to do a Hydro Traveler main DPS. There's a lot of variety, but overall the Traveler has a role. He does an okay job at it. It doesn't provide much utility outside of his role, and that's why he's rated so lowly. But as just a Traveler unit, he's pretty okay. That's about it, right? That's about it. So overall, I'd give him like a solid, 5 out of 10 as a character. Not that great, but it's whatever, right? It's the Traveler. I don't expect much. Anyway, we're going to wrap up this video. It is the Traveler, so not really that much thought was put into this because it was very simple. It's a very simple character, but the other characters, Freminette, Liney, and Lynette, are going to be covered a bit better, and I'll get to those in the future. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and have a great day.